Hi, I'm Carlin Borisenko. In early 2020, I was the knitting Democrat who accidentally went viral on the internet for going to a Trump rally and then left the party. I became the conservative darling, was on all the shows, traveled around the country, and then realized that conservatives were no better than Democrats. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that both political tribes are two sides of the same coin. But it wasn't all bad. On my journey, I became obsessed with understanding the woke ideology and the culture war. I broke the story of the city of Seattle doing segregated training with its employees.
How bad has this stuff become? The city of Seattle has now put out, I'm not kidding you, this is according to Dr. Carolyn Borisenko, who's an organizational psychologist. The city of Seattle asked its white employees to voluntarily spend a day off in a training about their internalized racial superiority.
I broke the story that led to the first ever federal lawsuit against critical race theory in the schools. I broke the Coke Be Less White story, one of the biggest anti-woke stories of all time. It got over 30 million views. Coca-Cola's corporate headquarters even had to change their outgoing voicemail.
Throughout the past few days, you may have seen inaccurate reporting on the content of our recently launched diversity, equity, and inclusion training program.
I exposed the schools in Burlington, Vermont for grooming middle school children live on the internet. They called me an unwoke cult leader for that. And the Vermont Human Rights Commission slandered me publicly as being a hate channel. I even got called a hero in Breitbart for exposing that the Washington Post was writing a hit piece on Christopher Rufo. I have broken story after story after story about what's going on in the public schools, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to autistic sex education, to the Department of Education in Michigan, literally training teachers all over the state how to groom children. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I host a podcast all about fighting back, and I'm downloading all of my knowledge to you on my Substack, carlin.substack.com. The world is a crazy place. We are literally surrounded by cults on all sides. On this show, we're going to do a deep dive into all aspects of the culture war, and I will show you the dark, dystopian underbellies on both sides. Here are the commitments I'll make to you. I will always tell you the truth. I will always bring you receipts. And if you stick with me, I promise you will see the world differently. Welcome to the cult. Please mount that like button for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Well, hey, everyone. Welcome to a very, 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 very special episode of The Cult. We have been waiting a long time for this. I have a great presentation to watch today that you, I think, are all, well, I won't say you're going to enjoy it. I won't say enjoy it in particular. But we're going to do something today, and there might be a lot of inappropriate chatter going on in the chat, I'll tell you that. And hopefully I don't hack up a log. I don't know what is going on. I don't cough all day. Don't cough all day until the minute that I'm doing like an interview or the minute that I go live on the internet. And then like my throat's like, okay, surprise, we're going to make it hard for you to talk now. Ha ha, too bad, so sad. Good thing I have some water in my gorgeous all tears are tasty tumbler to do that. But guys, welcome to episode 69 of The Cult. And you know, we can't let this go by without watching some subversive queer sex education. Of course, we have to watch queer sex ed for today's episode. And fun fact, did you guys know that last night around, well, not even last night, early in the wee hours of the morning, around 2 a.m. this morning, on the day of the 69th episode of The Cult, I hit 69,000 followers on Twitter, or X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, like whatever. But what is that for some coincidence? Like, can we just ponder the likelihood of that literally on the day of the 69th episode of The Cult, I hit 69,000 followers on Twitter? Like, I mean, come on. There are no coincidences. But of course, we do have to watch queer sex ed today. We have to, exactly, Reagan. It was meant to be. It was the universe smiles upon us. God winks at us in these moments. Guys, do something dirty to that like button. You can spit on the like button and call it daddy. You can finger that like button. You can 69 that like button if you're feeling a little literal. You can let us know if you feel comfortable what you're doing to the like button. Like yesterday we courted the like button, okay? People shook hands with the like button. They opened the door for the like button. They patted the like button on the back. I don't want to see no courting today. I want to see you guys doing some dirty, dirty shit to that like button. That's all I'm saying. Naruto says, I'm easing the tension between the like and dislike button. They need to start working out their back. I love it, Naruto. I love it. I love it. Well, guys, I did promise you some dirty tomfoolery for today's episode, and I gotta say, I think I'm gonna deliver on it. I think I'm gonna deliver. I found this little YouTube channel. In the wee hours of the morning last night, I was perusing a whole bunch of queer sex ed, and let me tell you what, there is some crazy queer sex ed stuff on YouTube. But the episode that I landed on that I want to watch today is from a podcast on a little YouTube channel literally called Queer Sex Ed. And the reason I chose this episode is for a couple of reasons, okay? Number one, they did this episode live at a university. Okay, this is normally like an audio only podcast. They only have a couple videos on their YouTube channel, but it is like an audio podcast that like does exist in the real world. But they recorded this episode live at Emory University. And so that was one of the reasons I chose it. This was on February 28th, 2020. So this was in the before times, before the pandemic, before the lockdowns. This was from several years ago, but I also chose it because I took a look at their chapters. And, you know, there's a lot of things they're going to talk about. They're going to talk about what is a sapiosexual. They're going to talk about dating preferences. They're going to talk about fearing the black body. They're going to talk about trans bodies, binary attraction, safety boundaries, question and answer, setting your own boundaries, and audience questions. So it looks like they might be covering a lot of saucy topics on this here podcast, and I think it's going to be pretty entertaining. Now, I did go over to their website just to take a look and be like, you know, what's going on with this Queer Sex Ed podcast. And let me just read you the description. What is queer sex ed? Queer sex ed is an imperative statement. When we call to queer sex ed, it is a call to arms for sexual health educators, schools, of course, parents, and people in all types of relationships to intentionally queer the institutions of sexual communication, sexual health, interpersonal relationships, and relationship structure. We believe that we must turn sex ed on its head. Even when sex ed is at its best, it is often, intentionally or unintentionally, exclusionary of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, genderqueer, gender fluid, and agender people, polyamorous people, asexual people, people with disabilities, and so many other social groups who engage in just as many relationships as straight, cis, monogamous people who are forced to do so through uncharted waters, through lack of media representation, and massive social stigma. And you know, I got to show you guys this too, and this might be a little TMI for some people, but I did take a look at their merch store because they do have merchandise, and I got to tell you guys, I mean, I never thought of putting butt plugs on merchandise. I mean, is this like what people want? Do they want stickers with butt plugs on them? This one, what is this? What does this actually say? I need a close up. I can't read this. Something all your base are belong to butts. I don't get this. Is this what people want? Do they want butt plugs on merchandise? I mean, I suppose if you guys really want butt plugs on merchandise, I can put them on merchandise. But I don't think this is a good idea. And I just want to say, shout out to the chat because you guys are doing some, you guys are really giving the like button the business. The like button is going to be very satisfied tonight, I think. The like button's getting their inner kink on. Thank you guys all for that entertainment. I'm not going to display it on the screen because I'll get demonetized forever and a day, but you all know what you're doing to the like button, all right? That's all I'm saying. So, yeah, I think we're in for a good episode today, guys. We're going to listen to this here podcast and we're going to talk about it. And I bet you that we're going to learn some things that we never wanted to hear about. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't want to be too judgmental, but can we talk about, like, hang on, I'll show you. Can we talk about what the thumbnail for this looks like? Hang on. Yeah, that's the thumbnail. You can see it down in the, like, I think we're gonna learn a thing or two today. I really do. And I don't think it's gonna be good. But you never know. This is definitely not gonna be cringy. Okay. But before we get started and learn about queer sex ed, I do want to remind people, make sure you are subscribed to my Substack, which is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. Again, that is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. This is my main Substack, the Actively Unwoke Substack. I have other Substacks too. You can subscribe to them if you want, but this is the main one I want to make sure everyone is subscribed to. We are, of course, still covering the Socialism Conference. I today posted a thread on Twitter and this big long article called "A Socialist Says Every Quiet Part Out Loud," and it is glorious. If you were around last week when we watched the abortion and trans bodies presentation from the Socialism Conference, because they were kind enough to stream it for us, I basically took out all the best clips and I put them in order and I told a little story about them and used them to illustrate what socialists actually believe. And this is truly, like, I have never seen a socialist say the quiet part out loud so clearly and so cohesively. This had everything in it. It really did. This had everything in it. And if we go into the article, I made a list of things this had in it. This is a story from the Socialism Conference, has everything you can possibly want. Abolish the family, queer Marxism, trans kids, abortion, white supremacy, capitalism, Vivek Ramaswamy, and a classic SJW freakout at the end. It has every dystopian theme we see from real socialists all rolled into a beautiful package that is almost so perfectly delivered, I can hardly believe it's real. Today, ladies and gentlemen, and I purposefully use the binary, you will learn that, yes, socialists really do want to get rid of the nuclear biological family. They're going to use queer Marxism and trans kids to do it. They believe that transing your kids is inextricably tied to abortion. They think that Vivek Ramaswamy is a white supremacist. They hate the Democrats and blame them for the loss of unlimited abortion. And their proposed solution to all of this is a revolution to overthrow capitalism. Guys, you can only find this on my Substack, which again is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. And if you can always sign up for free, a lot of my content is available for free. But if you do want to support the work I'm doing and help keep me in business, because I am 100% funded by you, I don't get to go to socialism conferences unless you guys see fit to support the content that I'm trying to create. Make sure you sign up for a paid subscription for $8 a month or $80 a year. Substack is my preferred place where you do support my work. But if you want to, you can support me on Locals. You can support me on Patreon. You can send in super chats to this here channel. You can get a YouTube membership. You can subscribe to my Twitter account. Whatever works best for you, ultimately, at the end of the day. I'm not, beggars can't be choosers, man. It is the way it goes. But if you want to support the work I'm doing, Substack is the very best place to do it. It is where I post the most of my content. It's where I post the best content and the most unique coverage of the unwoke space that you are going to find on the entire internet. So I do hope you guys will consider supporting me there. Another way you guys can support my work is by heading over to the Unwoke art merchandise store, which I think has some pretty cool merch, if I do say so myself. And today I want to show you around the mugs and water bottles collection, because I do have a lot of cool mugs and water bottles that we don't often look at on the channel. Of course, we do have the All Tears Are Tasty mug, a tumbler. We don't just drink leftist tears on this channel. I drink conservative tears too. In fact, sometimes, most of the time, if we're honest about it, I drink more conservative tears than I do leftist tears. And so I do celebrate that with the All Tears Are Tasty design. But we got so many other cool mugs. Like, look at this mug, guys. This is a mug with a picture of a dragon burning down the U.S. Capitol. And it says, "There goes our hero" on it. I love this mug. I think it's so cool. I'm so proud of that one. I've also got that one in an awesome red water bottle. You can get that too. Check this out. This is my Biden's presidential portrait mug, because Biden, of course, is a lizard person. And this mug will actually change color as you put hot liquid into it. Don't put this one in the dishwasher if you get it. It's a bad idea. But it is really cool because, Biden wears a mask, and so the mug changes colors. I thought that was pretty cool. Let's see. What else do we have? We've got the Be Bourgeois mug, the Be Different mug. This is actually a cool series of mugs I did. They just says, it's kind of hard to see in a picture, but it just says Unwoke on the outside. So kind of a fun gift. I think the red version of that is super, super cool. You can get that in the store. You can get this awesome little camper mug of Biden that playing a violin as the White House burns down in the background with ignorance is bliss on it. I got all sorts of cool stuff. Oh, and of course, I would be remiss. Yes, if you want to, not saying you have to or anything. Just because you're in a cult doesn't mean you have to buy a mug with my face on it. But if you wanted to buy a mug with my face on it, you can. You can. And I think it looks pretty cool. If I had not to pat myself on the back, but I think it looks pretty good if I do say so myself. That I am so proud of this picture because it has like the perfect amount of righteous indignation. All right, but that is my Unwoke Art merch store. There's a lot of stuff that you can find in the merch store, guys. You can find t-shirts, you can find hoodies, you can find posters, you can find bags, you can find all sorts of awesome stuff. And all purchases do go to support the work I'm doing. One last thing before we get started. I'm doing something fun in that all year, once a month for an entire for up to now, I have been doing a monthly workshop that I'm calling the Unwoke Your Work series. For those of you who know my background, I'm an industrial organizational psychologist. I have all these corporate trainings sitting around that I have been teaching people once a month for a full year about how to do better in the workplace, how to get your dream job, how to navigate the workplace, navigate different communication styles, do mindfulness strategies in the workplace, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm doing the last one tonight. And this is possibly the most fun one. This is a keynote. This was when I was doing corporate keynotes and that sort of stuff. This was my most popular talk of any talk that I gave. It's called Playing Politics, The Psychology of the Human Workplace. I keynoted this talk in Vegas on several occasions. I got to be on a big stage in Vegas. I keynoted this talk at massive corporate events. I keynoted this talk all over the country. I even did private trainings with organizations. I gave this talk at South by Southwest, mother effers. I had a solo presentation at South by Southwest giving this presentation title, and it got voted into South by Southwest by the audience. That's no mean feat. It is not easy to get a solo presentation at South by Southwest. I was a leftist at that time, so it'd be basically impossible for me now. But at the time I was on the left, and so it was much easier for me then than it would be now. Anyway, if you want to see this presentation, I'm doing a live version of it tonight at 8 p.m. I'm going to be recording it. We're going to be putting it on demand. So if you can't make it at 8 p.m., but you still want to see it, that is going to be available. And if you do want to join me, it is $50 to sign up, or if you are already a supporter in my community, I sent out some 50% off discount codes today as a nice little bonus. Or if you are supporting me at $25 a month or more on Locals or Patreon, you guys get in for free because that was the deal I made when you signed up for that. And so you got promo codes in your email as well. But here is the landing page for that. I will put that in the chat over on YouTube. I'll also pop it in the chat over on Rumble. Guys, if you want to understand the psychology of office politics, if you want to understand why people do what they do, if you want to understand how to get ahead in your workplace by navigating the people structures in your workplace, I might not always practice these things out in the wild, but I do actually know them and I do know how to teach them pretty well. So if you want to come and join me at 8 p.m. tonight, we're going to be doing that psychology of the human workplace. It's a private webinar that you can only get into if you either pay $50 or if you are already a member of my supporter community on local Substack. I sent out promo codes where you can get in for 50% off, or you can get in for free if you're $25 a month supporter or more. The webinar will be recorded, so if you can't make it tonight at 8 p.m., you will be able to watch it on demand. And as a follow-up, next week, we're doing a private Zoom workshop. So if you sign up for the presentation tonight, you're also going to get access to next week's private Zoom workshop where we're going to be able to work through the presentation, talk about it, talk about how to apply it in your everyday life. But guys, it's going to be a ton of fun. I promise you. If you work in an environment where you have to interact with people, this will explain everything. All right, guys. With that said, let's get into our presentation today. Oh, wait, I have a super chat from Kino, I think. Hang on. Kino says, here's a little song for episode 69. You say love is easy, but love is painful, but love can make you cry, but love can make you but love can leave you bloody. It's not easy, but love fills you up inside. Thank you, Kino, for that spectacular little song. All right, guys, let's get started with our presentation and, just, guard your loins, have a drink. I can't drink because I'm doing that presentation later, but you can drink if you want to. We are watching the Queer Sex Ed podcast live at Emory University. Make sure you do something dirty to that like button for me, and let's get started.
Stream is going good. Oh wow, hello. It's we're on the stage. This is so cool.
It's even harder to see y'all now.
This is very cool though.
When folks smile, I can see their teeth, and that's about it.
All right, here's what we're going to do, guys. I can't turn up the volume anymore on their end, but I'm going to turn down my microphone volume. And what I need everyone to do is turn up the volume on your computers because I cannot turn them up any higher on my end. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you all for coming.
Yeah, hello.
We're gonna do a live episode of the Queer Sex Ed podcast. If you haven't listened to the show before, welcome. This is your first episode. It's a great one.
We're really looking forward to it. Thank you.
Actually, great.
And I want to start by saying thank you to Maria and to Emory Pride for bringing us in. I want to say thank you to the School of Public Health and School of Nursing for bringing us in. Let's give them a round of applause really quick.
Yes, let's give the School of Public Health and the School of Nursing at Emory University. Let's give Emory University a big round of applause for bringing the Queer Sex Ed podcast to campus. Well done, School of Health and School of Nursing at Emory University. Way to go.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm not clapping loudly because I'm worried about the
Yes, we're still, it's less hot than it was. Sound check wise, like raise your hand if you're struggling to hear us up a little bit more, or thumbs up like it's good. It's good. Okay, it's good. Great. Wonderful. Okay, hit us with the sound. Let's go.
Oh my goodness.
Oh no.
That's okay.
Okay, that's okay. Mute the computer.
Socialists always have
I will
technical
edit it in
difficulties.
post.
Socialists suck at technology.
Many things get edited in post.
Imagine the guitar sound that opens the show and all the intro stuff that we won't have here because I don't have the script with me. And here we are. Hello, welcome. Thank you. I'm so glad you all are here.
Thank you for making noise.
Thank you, Emory. Thank you for having us. So hello and welcome to Queer Sex Ed.
Thank you.
This is a sex positive podcast where we center queer and trans voices in discussions of sexual health, pleasure, and BDSM.
Oh,
This is episode 65, Dating
Really?
Preferences Live.
everyone
at
get
Emory
your
University.
whips.
Woo! My name is Sarah, and I use she, her, and hers pronouns. And with me, as always, in person,
hers,
is
hers.
my co-host.
And this is Jay, and I use these, and Zers pronouns.
We're
Oh my
usually separated by
god!
so much distance. So
Oh my god! I think this is the first time we've ever had a Z, Zer, and Zers on the show. Guys, I should have had bingo for this. Z, Zer, and Zers. Okay, nothing could go wrong with this.
Oh, thousands
really
of
wonderful.
miles.
Oh, I meant to take my hair down.
There you go.
That's
Okay.
very good. Yeah, that's very
Quick
good.
zhuzh.
Thank you.
We're
Yes.
having a zhuzh. There was going to be makeup. There is no makeup. It was too complicated.
So just a few logistical things before we get started. We're going to do questions later on in the show. We have a shorter show content than usual, which, as you all know, means it's 2 hours. Just kidding. We're gonna try to stick to a shorter show.
We're aiming for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I can guarantee nothing.
And have plenty of time for questions after. We are going to have a microphone set up if you want to come up and ask your question. We'll put it on the floor up here once we're ready to start. But we also have pieces of paper that are going to be passed out. So if you want to write your question on a slip of paper, we'll collect those before we're going to do the question part, just so that you don't have to out yourself, or you can ask an anonymous question.
If you would like to ask a question in the
And if
chat,
you ask
please go
crappy
ahead
things,
and
you'll
do
get a
so.
crappy answer. But for the most part, any question is a good question, unless it's bigoted and bad.
Like, should Nazis have rights? Not a legitimate
Nope.
question. The answer is no.
The answer is no.
Moving on.
Wow.
We're here to talk about.
Of course, by Nazi, they mean capitalist. I hope everyone knows that. By Nazi, they don't actually mean Nazis as in Germany. They mean Nazi as in fascist, as in capitalist.
About dating preferences. And we always start with a word of the show. We usually banter, but we did a lot of pre-show, so I think we're good on the banter side.
I mean, we could try. I don't know.
Nah, it's okay.
It would
It's
be
okay.
forced right now.
So question slips. I already did that part. Okay, great. So our word of the show that we're going to talk about is sapiosexual.
Actually, a word.
Which is actually a word. Hooray!
Which maybe
we
happens
did it
30% of the time.
Yeah, it's usually a phrase. But word of the show is such a good name. So Jay, you love defining things, and we would love to have you define what sapiosexual means in person.
So I'm using the technical definition, and we are going to talk about why this is a problem. But it basically means a person who finds intelligence sexually attractive or arousing. And it's sometimes talked about as kind of the thing that is the most attractive or arousing about someone is their intelligence.
Does anyone find intelligence to be like a turnoff? I mean, truly, is there anyone in the chat that's like only turned on by like stupid people? And like if a smart person comes around that like you're like, wow, that person is really smart, I would never ever fuck them. Nope. Yeah, like is that like actually a thing? I mean, I understand being turned on by intelligence. I get it. Like intelligence should be like it should be an admirable characteristic that like people are like, wow, I want to be around the smartest person in the room. I do find though that some people are just really committed to being around stupid people.
Or that it's the only thing that's found to be attractive or arousing. I want to name before we get into this, because this is going to be a fairly critical word of the show, given personal experience, that there are definitely people who use this, and I'm probably some who are listening, maybe some in this audience, who use this to mean the people that I pursue relationships with are people who I have an intellectual connection with. Cool. Yeah. Great. That's an important connection for some people. That is not how I hear most people using it.
Yeah, and we'll get into that piece. I want to note something is about my asexuality and my demisexuality more specifically. I really understood that it wasn't actually about intelligence necessarily, but it was more that I needed that emotional connection with somebody first.
Wait. This person is saying they're both asexual and demisexual. How? I understand asexuality because there are a couple asexual members of my community. They swear they're asexual. They swear it's a real thing. They're grounded people. Like, I kind of believe that. But, like, how is it possible to be an asexual and a demisexual at the same time? That doesn't make sense.
Conversations or intellectual, like, talking about stuff or doing activism together or that kind of thing, like, made me attracted to somebody. And
you're supposed to be asexual.
Was the word that I used for that for a little while, and because of reasons that we're going to talk about here, I don't use that word.
If you're asexual, you're not sexually attracted to people. So if you're saying you're sexually attracted to people based on their intelligence, then you are not asexual
anymore. But I just want to speak to the fact that like language changes, language has different interpretations in different places, and just because a community or some people might be using a word in a really problematic way. If you've listened to like our bisexual doesn't mean transphobic episode, you've heard some of this stuff before. But just because some people use an identity in a bigoted way or in a way that's harmful doesn't mean that everybody using that is automatically a bad person. But we want to offer you some different perspectives on the idea of sapiosexuality and also what it actually means to be attracted to intelligence, and how that's sort of mitigated by our culture, by our white supremacist heteropatriarchy. And it's going to kind of be a lead in to talk about dating preferences as a whole, which again is going to be our main topic of the show.
Right. Mark is pointing out demisexual means you need to get to know someone to be sexually attracted to them. Okay, fine. But if you can be sexually attracted to people, then you're not an asexual. I'm sorry. Like you have to choose. Either you can get sexually attracted to people or you can't get sexually attracted to people, but you can't have both. That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So how I most often hear this used is by mostly cisgender heterosexual men to get backdoor access to queer spaces. So, for example, I cannot tell you the number of straight men that I still have trying to poke at me on OkCupid.
I don't believe you.
It's not It's not going to.
Does anyone, okay, I don't mean to be a bitch. I really, really don't. Okay, maybe I'm being a little bit of a bitch. Does anyone believe that I don't remember their pronouns. Does anyone believe that zers has straight men poking at them? Because I don't believe that the zers has straight men poking at them. I'm sorry. I don't believe that that's true. I just don't.
Work because I don't want to be seen by straight people, but then they use sapiosexual to get around that so that they're not blocked anymore. Or there have been kind of queer only parties or queer only spaces or queer only dungeons that cis
There are
men
queer
have decided
only
that they are
dungeons?
entitled to, and then say, oh, well, I'm sapiosexual, so I should be allowed in this space too. No, just no. Like, not every space is intended for every person, and
Wait.
it's not okay.
Well, like, who are you to judge how someone self-identifies? You're making us use the pronoun zers, and you want to judge whether or not someone is queer enough to be in your queer dungeon? That seems a little exclusionary to me, zers.
Yeah. I also want to say too that like sometimes the people who are doing that might have other queer identities that they are nervous to explore, that they're afraid to be public about, and it seems like a more accessible way in, or it seems like something that's more socially acceptable for them, or something that's going to get them less shit, basically.
I will give you so much shit.
And really what it comes down to is doing that self work, if that is what's going on for you, and figuring out if I really feel pulled to these queer spaces, if I really feel like I need to be there and like that's something that is necessary for me, then maybe there's more going on there for you, instead of kind of stopping at this surface level identity and saying like, well, I'm still mostly interested in dating like white, thin, conventionally attractive looking cisgender women, but I also want to be able to be in these spaces. The reality is sometimes there are spaces that just don't fit because marginalized people need to have a place to be away from the harms of cis, het, straight culture.
Well, and also like trying to get access to queer women in ways that like gives you an in so that you can try to prove something so that you're like getting over a hump in some way, which is gross, or approaching trans folks in a super fetishizing way is often another way that like, again, folks are kind of getting into spaces, and lots of folks use lots of different ways. This is just one that is particularly irksome.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's a zers. We don't like they don't adhere to the binary, bot. It's a zers.
Also often used to demonstrate how much better or more enlightened somebody is, rather than an actual sexual orientation. And so it's this sort of like, I'm above needing to be attracted to bodies, like I just am attracted to smart minds or whatever else.
I'm sorry if you are not attracted to really, really hot bodies. Bodies are great. Bodies are cool. Bodies do lots of really interesting things. Also, things that I wish mine didn't do sometimes, because bodies are also weird and gross. But like, bodies are cool, and sex is so much better deeply embodied than it was when I was not deeply embodied.
Yeah. I think another thing about this too
I don't
is
want to.
that
Okay.
most of
my
the time
thoughts
when
to
people are
myself.
using this word, they're still dating people who look very similar, and that looks is, like I said, usually like thin, white, conventionally attractive cis women. And so if somebody's using this identity as their term in like a real way,
Wait.
what it would look like is having really diverse sexual partners, really diverse.
Are you suggesting that thin, straight, blonde, cis women aren't capable of being smart? That seems a little judgmental to me.
Dating partners, like people who have really different bodies.
Here's what happened. This person who uses she her pronouns, she her wanted to date someone that identified as a sapiosexual. Okay. And so she her decided that person shouldn't like take bodies into consideration at all. It's only about intelligence, whatever. And then the person that she her wanted to date ended up dating a thin blonde girl. And she, her was upset that the person that she wanted to date, who she thought was a sapiosexual, ended up dating a thin blonde girl instead of she, her, and she got jealous, and now she's complaining about it on a stage at Emory University. That's absolutely what happened. They explained it already. A sapiosexual is someone who's only interested in intelligence. Exactly, Mark. Exactly. This person was this person was maybe turned down by a skinny blonde girl. I don't know. It could be any number of things. But there was definitely a real life skinny blonde girl that was involved in this equation.
Shapes, really different race and culture backgrounds, really different trans identities or whatever else, right? Because if you're only attracted to somebody's mind, if you're only attracted to somebody's intelligence, then you would think that would then connect across lots of different identity groups.
But why are you monitoring who people are dating? Why are you monitoring who people are dating?
For conventionally attractive within sort of white cis society.
Mm-hmm. And not like, and either not disabled or not visibly disabled. Mm-hmm. And right. So really what we're kind of dancing around right now, which I don't know why we're dancing around it other than I just kind of separated things out weird in the way that I was thinking about this, is at its core is deeply embedded ableism, classism, and often racism and white supremacy, right? Like intelligence in and of itself is a eugenicist project. It is a project that
so they're saying that they're against people identifying as sapiosexuals because sapiosexuals are really white supremacists? Because they're suggesting that intelligence is white supremacy? Oh, this is like fucking classic, man. This is great.
Been used to marginalize, minoritize, forcibly sterilize, institutionalize in prisons and in psychiatric hospitals, push to the margins literally and hide from society folks who were not classified as appropriately intelligent. And every single one of these intelligence tests that we have is based on middle to upper class white norms, so that there's some really interesting things out there around, like, if you take things out of standard English and put things into African-American English or African-American language, some people call it a language, some people call it a dialect. I will use both words here. And then ask kids for whom standard English is their first language or their only dialect that they speak, they score how folks who were raised speaking African-American language or African-American English, it flips. So we see this complete flip in these intelligence courses. It's about understanding the ways in which words are used, because it's not about not getting what people are saying. It's just, this word doesn't mean this, or this grammar structure doesn't mean this. And once it's actually put into a different language, shockingly enough, white folks do really bad on this when we're looking at when we're not using standard English.
Listen, so Tayton asks, how do these people get paid to do this, Carlin? Here's the thing, guys, and I really hope that this gives people hope. I really do. I want this to make this a white pill moment. You can literally make money doing anything. You really can. You don't have to work for other people. You can work for yourself, because you can literally make money doing anything. These people charge between $450 and $1,000 for a presentation. I know, because they have it on their website. I saw it earlier. And that's actually not a lot in terms of like presentation stuff, but people are paying them between $450 and $1,000 for a presentation. If these people can get paid money to talk about this sort of stuff, then what is stopping you from doing whatever you want to do? Honestly, be creative, guys. Don't hold yourself back. If these people can put themselves out into the world and make money and get tour around to college campuses, because this ain't the only college campus they spoke on, then you can quite literally do whatever you want to do. You just have to believe in yourself, put your ideas out there, accept that there are going to be people on the internet who think that you're crazy, but you can make money doing almost anything. And I hope that this reassures you that whatever dream you have is achievable.
There's also these, like, when it comes to kind of embedding this just beyond the eugenics of intelligence, the white supremacy of intelligence generally, defining sexuality in this way really is based on a determination of who is valuable as a human being, and then actually depending that on their ability to align with normative ideas of what intelligence is. So like language and grammar policing, can we just please stop? Can we just please stop? Framing of white authors or ideas or of the academy as like the best or the most intelligent. I don't know how many of you have been forced to read. I mean, there are many college students in this audience, I'm sure. So many of you have probably been forced to read a whole lot of really shitty white authors and go, wow, that was a waste of 3 days of my life.
Wow, that's really fucking racist.
Or
that's
we're told
really
you should go read
racist,
Jane
bro.
Austen. You don't have to read Jane Austen. Don't read Jane. You don't have to read Hemingway. You don't have to read any of these fuckers.
That's
unless
good.
you want to get a sense of like what is embedded as weirdly pretentiously intelligent, apparently. It also centers neurotypical folks and folks who communicate in neurotypical ways. People who use middle and upper class English signifiers, things like, well, as I was considering that, or when I thought more deeply about that, or
how is that middle
considering
class?
blah, 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 then this happened. We can all say all of these words and they mean absolutely nothing, but because it clues to middle and upper class language standards, people read that as sounding intelligent.
Wow.
And if you also like, this is also about people whose first language is your own language, right? Generally standard English, and people with a certain kind of education.
This
and
is
a certain
everything I
kind
hoped it would
of
be.
expertise and all of this bullshit that you do not know when you look at someone, but you are reading into it based on how that person looks. And then you are using this as a justification for continuing to align with these very normative ideas about what is attractive. And it's bullshit.
Yeah.
That was a rant.
Okay. So this is apparently a podcast about how you should not be attracted to things that fall within a normal deviation of what people are attracted to. Do you want to know why they're doing a whole podcast about why you should not be attracted to whatever you're attracted to? Because they do not fall into the norm of what most people are going to be attracted to. So this entire podcast is an exercise in self-validation where they're basically saying, if you don't want to fuck me, you're a bigot. And I'm gonna be like, I mean, like, not everyone is a hot blonde girl, man. Not everyone is like a fucking built Chad. I get it. I get the inclination to want people to be. I really, really do. But not everyone who is not a hot blonde girl or like a muscular built Chad does podcasts on the internet trying to shame people into sleeping with them. I'm just saying.
Your rants. It's so fun to have your rants in person. It's also hard for me because we're looking this way and I'm used to like looking at you on Skype.
I keep like wanting to do this. I mean, I could just like turn the mic.
Yeah.
I don't know. No, but I'm not looking at y'all.
You have to, yeah. Look at our wonderful audience that we can barely see because of the lights. So I think when it really gets into this, what it's about is it's about power, and it's about who has the power to define what is intelligence and what is smart, right? And so people who are identifying within this are also subtextually saying, I get to define what's smart and what's not smart, and whoever connects to me or says interesting things to me or who has similar types of interests or
yes, you get to decide for yourself what you think is smart and not smart. That's right. You do actually get to define that for yourself.
Intelligence as I do is smart or is valuable in that way, right? And so it's not that you can't want a connection with people or that you can't desire having an emotional connection first, because that is how I engage with people. I really do need an emotional connection with somebody. I really do need to feel like I can talk with somebody and feel really deep with somebody. But it's less about that being a problem and more about tying it to these systems that come from, like Jay mentioned, white supremacy, that come from ableism, and that really come from this idea that there is
you guys are the ones saying black people can't be smart.
Intelligence that is a scale.
You guys are the ones that are being racist.
Or that is able to be translated across different languages, different communities, different understandings of who humans are. And so really what we want to challenge folks to do is think about, what do you mean when you're saying sapiosexual, if that's how you identify? What do you actually mean? Like, what are you trying to connect with people? Do you need an emotional connection? Are you trying to find people that have really similar interests to you, right? All of that stuff can be imparted.
Why are
in
you
your
trying to
attraction
police how people
without
identify?
using terms and frameworks that come from these really bigoted places, right? And as we're going to talk about later on in the show, right, there's no bad people. Like, you're not a horrible person if this spoke to you or if this is something that meant something to you. But we're also going to help offer challenges and ways to think about that in a different way, or things that you may have not even considered in what you're saying when you're doing that. So, summary, any other stuff you want to?
No.
Don't use sapiosexual to get into queer spaces if you're not a queer person. Just
please
don't.
But aren't you queer if you're? So that's interesting. So they just distinguish between sapiosexual and being queer, which means that who you sleep with has nothing to do with being queer. I would also offer that being trans has nothing to do with being queer. Being queer means nothing more than a far left political ideology. That's it.
Spaces or queer pants.
Or queer pants, yeah.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
It's gross.
Queer pants deserve better. So we're going to do a really short Patreon break because usually we have a stinger and stuff, but we have a Patreon. It's how we support this show. We're not going to spend too much time on it, but I just want to let folks know that one of the reasons we do that is because being supported by people who listen to the show allows us to say things like fuck capitalism.
Mhm.
It allows us to say things like sex toy companies suck ass.
There it is.
Allows, and not in the fun way.
No.
It allows us to really speak about things in the way that we want to and not feel like we're going to money out. A lot of times it means that people end up in these really compromised deals where they have to push capitalistic products that they may not even personally believe in, personally use, or really care about that much. And so we're grateful to the folks who support the show and make it possible for us to not have to do that. Yeah. So thank you.
So yeah, if you can support us with money, that's amazing. And if that is not an option for you right now, that's okay too. Please spread the word, and also go to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app and rate and review us. Give us a 5-star, give us a sentence. We love reading them. And they really do help people find the show. They're also just a nice little lift when we get to see them, and we like to know, how this is impacting people and if it is being helpful or not.
Yeah. There was one person who gave us a 3-star review because they said Jay talked over me. And I'm like, I think I talk over Jay most of the time. But, give us 5 stars. It's much better.
I mean, it's up to you.
So,
Sarah, you have a tour date coming up.
Yeah. So I will be at Southwest Love Fest, which is a polyamory-centered conference that happens in Tucson every year.
Wait.
I will be there from the 2nd.
Southwest Love Fest, a polyamory conference? Should I infiltrate a No, this is a bad idea. This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea. I should definitely not infiltrate a polyamory conference. This is a horrible, really, I'm going to get myself this is like the making of a comedy. This is like the making of like some sort of like haphazard where I'm going to end up like around a bunch of swingers. I am not fucking taking my this is a horrible idea. I wonder what kind of vendors. Bot already found the website. I wonder what kind of vendors would sponsor such a conference.
Through the 5th
of April.
Yeah. April 2nd through April 5th. I am presenting one of those days, but I don't remember which one right now. But I'm going to be...
Guys, guess what? Next year, the Southwest Love Fest conference is on my birthday. It's on my birthday. It's like this is like when the universe aligns and like God sends you a sign. We're gonna have to see. All right, I'm not committing to anything. I'm just saying it's on my birthday. It's in Arizona. We wanted to do a retreat to Arizona anyway. We wanted to go to Sedona anyway. It's not that far away from Tucson. I can hit up this polyamory conference, and then we can go get a house, and this is gonna become a thing. All right.
Be doing a workshop on dysphoria and sexuality and navigating that as a trans person or as a partner of trans people. And it's going to be a really fun workshop. I've done this at a conference 2 times before, and it's always been a really great a really great conversation. So if you're going there, I would love to see you. And if you're not, think about going there this year or next year. I really love Southwest Love Fest. I've been to a lot of kink and sex and polyamory conferences, and it's probably my favorite one that I've been to. It's just a really fun environment. So yeah.
Also, we still have tour dates available for our 2019-2020 tour, and we are booking for 2020-2021. So send us an email at queersexed@gmail.com, and we'd love to come and see you.
Yay.
All right, we're done with that now. Thanks for the stinger again, love.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for.
That is not what you're here for.
Well, that and the show, I guess. So up next, we're going to talk about dating preferences. We already, like I said, got started on sapiosexual, but
like dig into it, tear it apart.
We already ranted on sapiosexual. Now there's more to rant about, and it's called dating preferences. So we want to start this by saying there's a difference between not feeling attraction to somebody based on your individual compatibility or claiming, excuse me, there's a difference between not having individual compatibility with somebody and claiming that you aren't attracted to an entire race, an entire body type, an entire nationality, or other physical or socially.
Oh, here's where they're going to shame people based on who they're attracted to.
So what we're going to do is dive into the difference between those, and also maybe help you dive into your own experience.
Yeah, Sarah, she, hers. How can you be asexual and be going to all these sex and kink conferences? Why are you going to conferences based around sex and kink if you don't want to have sex with people? That doesn't make sense.
If there are things that are showing up in your dating life, if you're only dating people who are of the same race as you, or if you're only dating people who look very similar to you, or you're only dating people who are skinny, or you've never considered dating a trans person or anything like that, it's important to dive into those things and really ask, like, where's that coming from for you, and what makes you uncomfortable with that?
Why?
We were considering
because I don't want to.
Comments that have been left on Sarah's "It's transphobic to say you will not date a trans person" article. Which is not the title. I am totally misremembering.
No, it's transphobic to say you don't date trans people, something like that.
And then we decided that no one actually needed to air that ever, and no one needed to hear all those delightfully violent microaggressions.
No, but I get lots of notifications still from this article I wrote like 3.5 years ago that are like people being like,
and I think you just read the title.
Yeah.
I'm not a transphobe. You definitely just read the title.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff going on there.
Okay, breaking news. Rumble is down. I don't know why Rumble's down, but Rumble's down. So, sorry, Rumble. It's not my fault.
Yeah. I also wanted to say that, like, the goal of this isn't to say that, like, you have to be attracted to everyone, or you have to be interested in dating everyone, or you have to have sex with everyone. Please don't have sex with anyone you don't want to have sex with. Please don't date anyone that you don't want to date. Like, that's cool.
Yeah, Rumble's completely boinked right now. Oh, wait, it's back. Never mind.
It's not about trying to, like, prove how woke you are by, like, doing that. It's about looking internally and going, whoa, I am saying, like, or I'm rejecting large swaths of people, or I just don't find these kinds of bodies attractive. And where is that really coming from? And it's often coming from the reality.
You don't have to do inner work in order to assess why you are not attracted to people that you are not attracted to. You don't have to convince yourself to be attracted to something that you are not attracted to. It's just the way it goes. Jennifer, what did you say that the chat censored? What the hell's going on?
Of growing up and being raised in oppressive situations and being socialized with certain values and beauty standards and associations between identity, how something looks on a body, and whether or not that's considered beautiful. Beauty standards change across culture, across history, around the world, simultaneously existing, and they have shifted in some predictable and some not predictable patterns. I also do want to point to a really excellent book by Sabrina Strings.
Everyone welcome Buttercup. Hi, Buttercup. Let us know what you did to the like button, please.
Phobia and thinness as American exceptionalism. That really digs into how this particular vision of conventional attractiveness was built as a white supremacist product and project.
Yeah. So don't date anyone that you don't want to date. Don't have sex with anyone you don't want to have sex with. That's
Thank
not the point
you.
of what we're talking about
It kind
here.
of is, though.
And it's important to also mention that like marginalized people don't exist just to like be your learning experience, right? Or to like be your like way of exploring yourself or
Hang
whatever, right?
on.
Like that's
Hang
very
on. You guys just did a whole 5-minute diatribe where you said if you're not attracted to fat people or trans people or any of these other people, then you need to do inner soul searching to figure out why you're not attracted to these people. And then you're like, but don't use fat people or trans people as your experiment. Like, what do you want? What do you want? I get that you want people to be attracted to you. I really, really do. Like everyone does. It's natural. But if you're going to shame people about the fact that they've never dated someone who looks like you and then say, don't use us to experiment and try new things, those two things contradict each other. Do you want them to try new things or do you not want them to try new things? Again, like she, her, z, zim, zers, whatever the fuck. Like you guys need to sit down and examine your talking points and think about consistency because you're just not consistent. This is not like if you get someone to the point where this person has like never dated a fat trans person and you get them to do all that inner soul searching about why they're not attracted to a fat trans person, and then you get them to the point where they're like, they've convinced themselves through several years of therapy that they can indeed date a fat trans person because they're transphobic if they don't date a fat trans person, and then you're like, don't experiment on me, then you've just defeated the entire point.
humanizing. So it's one thing to like look into yourself and wonder like, why do I have these before? Maybe you've never dated a trans person before. It doesn't mean to like go on OkCupid and like just search for fat people or trans people, right? But it more means that like work on yourself to be more open to that in the world, and you will probably find those connections in a natural way that doesn't require finding people or forcing them to really be your like diversity check mark.
Yeah, men on Grindr don't understand that.
Maybe you could just
But
let
didn't you
people
just get
be
a message
attracted
today
to
that's
what
like,
they're
I want to date a
attracted to.
trans?
Oh no, it was I'm curious about fucking a trans. It was not dating a trans.
Even
It's
worse.
always and a trans. Like, thank you for that.
We want to start this by saying that this is to help you dive into your own experiences and your own biases and programming and bigoted attitudes that you might have, and that Jay and I also have, right? So we're all born into a racist, misogynist, fatphobic, transphobic, and classist society. Ableist, queerphobic.
Ageist.
Where advertising, media, our families, our friends, all shape what we see as beautiful and as attractive and as interesting and worthy of dating, right? And changing these behaviors and attitudes isn't an easy thing to do. And the work is always ongoing, right? There's always more to learn, there's always more to explore, and there's always more to transform within yourself. Starting
Reagan, I can't believe you would misgender. That is a she, her, and a z, zim, zers.
from a place of bigoted beliefs about dating or about bodies or about attraction doesn't mean that you're bad or you're wrong or you're an evil person, because we all start at that place, right? We're all born into a world that tells us that thin, conventionally attractive whiteness is what we should try to attain. And if we can't get there, we should try to get as close as possible, right? This is about really blowing that apart and breaking up the idea of what we consider attractive or what we consider worthy of love and romance and dating.
I mean, this is why things like the Black is Beautiful movement is revolutionary, why reclaiming indigenous body modification and beautification practices and standards is revolutionary, because it is directly against and undercutting all of this cis heteropatriarchal capitalist white supremacist ideas of what these what bodies should be able to do, shouldn't be able to do, what is attractive, what is not, what is valuable, what is not, which also has been really embedded in science. And I know many of you have heard me go on about the bullshit that is social Darwinism and evolutionary biology. Here's another opportunity to hear more. We tend to start with, oh, this is how people are doing this, therefore it must be a biological drive, therefore we now must prove it with science. Or it's been socially constructed like literally every other part of our lives, which again, social constructionism is not to say that things don't act like they're real. Money is socially constructed. We still got to pay our bills, right?
Rumble,
Gender,
down
race,
again.
sex, class, ability, all of these things are socially constructed. Disease is socially constructed.
Pretty sure disease
based
isn't
on
socially constructed.
interpretations of things that bodies do or do not do. It doesn't mean that bacteria don't exist. It just
Did you just argue that cancer is socially constructed? I'm pretty sure people with cancer would disagree that cancer is socially constructed.
means what illness is and how we construct it is a medical construction.
Wow.
Right, the difference between how we think about HIV or pneumonia, like the example.
Guys, wouldn't you be super comfortable if your doctor thought that disease was socially constructed? Like if you went to the doctor because something was wrong and they were like, "Don't worry about it. Your problems are a social construct." Would that make you would that give you confidence in the ability of your doctor? I'm going to say probably not. Rottweiler says, "I wonder how friendly they are towards us bisexuals who don't want to drop the label in favor of pansexual since bi means two, meaning binary." Well, I've always like wondered about that, to be honest, Rottweiler. I remember when I was writing my book, I was making some categories of like from most oppressed to least oppressed. And I was very confused about like, I remember actually having long conversations with myself around 2 a.m. around like bisexual, pansexual, which is more oppressed, and I think I ultimately said that pansexual was more oppressed because bisexual was like, I think around the binary. I think that my logic came out in the same place. But like they do categorize these things. I think it's a fair question. And then we have another super chat from Naruto. Hang on, Naruto. He says, "Did you see the show clip Steve Deace tweeted out? I did see it. I did like it. I appreciated that Steve Deace told off his audience. I always appreciate when every content creator tells off their audience. That was pretty great. Thank you for sharing it."
You said earlier today, right? Those are things that affect the body in ways that are difficult and that you have to cope with, right? But one of those has stigma and shame and violence and a lot of like health marginalization attached to it. And one of those is just like a thing you go to the doctor for, right? And so why aren't both of those a thing you can go to the doctor for? Well, because of bigotry, right?
Yeah, and also like this stuff is really, it's deep. And so even the stuff that we consciously reject, the things that we've been raised into believing are like wagon ruts for us to kind of fall back into when we're under stress or when we're feeling activated or when we're highly emotionally charged or when we're trying to make a decision quickly or when it's something that feels really close and individualized, like an attraction that feels so close that like, oh, well, this is just how things are. And I, this is still embedded bias. Mm-hmm. And again, we're not talking about good or bad people. I'm not saying anyone is a good or bad person, but there are things that we can be more thoughtful about, and there are better actions that we can take.
Yeah. So as we're talking about this, pay attention to what it brings up in you. Pay attention to if something is challenging for you or feels like something that is...
Hang on, we got a super chat from Kino. Thank you, Kino, for the super chat. "People like this are the reason why spreading HIV/AIDS in California is no longer a crime." Yeah, I think that that's true, and that's oh God, Kino. Thank you for that, Kino. Thank you.
Resisted within you, because that's a pretty good indication that there's probably something there for you.
There's a there.
And you can use that as a way, kind of like when we talked about in our jealousy episode, like you can use the discomfort of jealousy to tell you more about what your needs are, right? Similarly, when you hear something that might be challenging your own internalized ideas of whether you're a good person or not, or about bigoted assumptions you might have, you can use that reaction to then teach you more about where that's coming from, right? And so we invite all of you to not feel like this is some sort of like attack or something that we're coming at you with, but rather we want to help those of you in the room and on the podcast, and also just Jay and I ourselves, kind of dive into like, why do these dating preferences exist? How do they show up? And how do they cause harm, right? Because really what it comes down to is, how do we avoid harm? How do we avoid dating apps being a really dangerous place for trans people or for people of color or for people navigating those systems? And then why
dating apps are dangerous?
Separate, different apps that allow us to have safety when we could just do the social work to help make the world a safe place for those people instead, right? Not that people can't have their own spaces as well, but
so let's just start with trans bodies, because
that's
I'll just go there. And I want to name here, like, one of the things that always comes up for me in this is that when I was first coming out as queer when I was a baby, 20 years ago.
A baby queer, not like
Baby-
an actual
no,
baby.
not an actual baby. We'd have to go back significantly more than that, almost 40 years for an actual baby. You know, I
just want to point out that Bot and Kino DM'd me the polyamory conference website at almost exactly the same time, like separately from each other. So that says that says something. I'm not quite sure what it says, but it says something.
coming up in a cis lesbian community that disparaged trans women so strongly that I internalized a lot of that shit. And so even though when I started dating a trans woman when I was barely 19, I had internalized so much shit, it really got in the way of our ability to sexually connect and emotionally connect for a while until I figured out what the fuck this was coming from. And where it was coming from was this idea of like, this is somehow undercutting my queer identity. Obviously not. I am, yeah. Anyway, and that this was like, and I was also worried about rejection from community, which was a legitimate worry because I lost my community in just because of who I was dating and who I was in love with. And then, you know, then coming out as trans shortly thereafter, yeah, that just exploded. But I do want to thank Tracy for helping crack that egg. Good job. I appreciate you. We were not good together for a long time, and that's okay. I was a fucked up 19-year-old. But thanks for cracking my egg.
But now we're passing that on to crack many eggs with our show. So,
And apparently by fucking people.
Yeah, exactly.
What?
So we want to say that it's okay
Oh,
that your
God.
sexual orientation might be a very important
God.
part of your identity and of your attraction.
It's
So
a hugely important part of mine.
yeah, and it's a big part of mine too, right? And so it's not to say that if we get rid of dating preferences, it means you have to be open to dating everyone all the time, or that you have to force yourself to feel attraction to somebody that you don't. That's definitely not what we're talking about.
That's kind of
here.
what you've been talking
But
about
what
for 20
we do want
minutes.
to help with is spending some time thinking about what attraction really means. And when you say sexual orientation, what do you actually mean by that, right? Are you really talking about just a set of genitals? Or do you mean your attraction to identity groups that are beyond that?
Yeah. And we wanted to stay with genital preferences for a second, because I think this is where a lot of folks kind of get stuck or tripped
I
up.
think
And
that's a
again,
really good idea,
A lot of the
Jennifer.
comments I get on that article
Yes,
are things
I
like,
will.
you're
I do.
homophobic because you're telling gay men that they have to have sex with vaginas or whatever, right? And it's like,
is this really just about people's bits?
Yeah.
Is that really what sexual orientation is? And so with genital preferences, like some
Yes,
are
it
absolutely
is.
about
I
trauma.
like dick.
Like, yeah, and trauma is definitely one of the reasons that I have problems.
Dick
interacting
is
with
critical
cis
to
men.
the equation.
And I know we
Mhm.
both have problems interacting with cis men, which is not to say that cis men are bad. It's just there's a lot of trauma there. And also, like, some of these preferences are about what you're used to, or some of them are about, you know, what those parts have been constructed to mean to you. And you know, maybe it's also like some things that certain sets of parts are more likely able to do is a really key part of your sexuality. Although I will say that, like, some toys and other parts may be able to do all of those things as well in different arrangements and with or without assistance. And anyway,
well, and also someone with the genitals that you're imagining might also like not using those genitals, right? Or might want to use a strap-on instead because it feels more affirming for them or whatever else.
genitals are fun.
I just want to say, Suspicious Bird, I understand what you're saying. I really do. You just might want to reconsider the wording of that. That could be read in any number of ways that are incriminating. Just reconsider. That's all I'm saying. I understand, though. I'm not saying you're a pedo or anything, but it could be read that way. Be careful with wording when you're talking about dick. It'll get you into trouble.
Is really the long and short of it there. Right. But so my question here really is always like, how much of attraction is about gender and about physical pieces that you're like, oh, this is something that is really interesting, or oh, this person is really beautiful. And how much of it is about genitals? Because we don't generally walk around without our pants off. like, or with our pants off rather. We do walk around without our pants off. I feel like I may have been painting myself into a corner there of nudity that I do not aspire to. But right, with the exception of like nude beaches and sex parties and dungeons, like that's not the first thing that you generally see of people, if you see it at all.
Richard, you're not. I'm writing a comedy movie in my head right now, Richard. I really am.
So if we're saying like, I'm not attracted to penises or I'm not attracted to vulvas. I am using medical language here. Not that I particularly like it at all. Just as a general umbrella right now. If we're saying
I am not attracted to vulvas. They terrify me. Not even in college. I'm just saying.
things like that, like what does that actually mean?
I know my husband is downstairs listening right now being like, what the fuck is she watching?
And what does that part mean? And what is it about then that you're taking that part and reading it on other parts of people's bodies to indicate that? And again, not saying that anybody has to have sex with anybody else because of their body parts. Like trauma is real. What you are used to is real. Key parts of your sexuality are real. Like what those things mean can get in the way of being able to engage with them, how you kind of internalize that stuff. And also like, is this really a deal breaker? If this person is someone that you're really interested in, you're really attracted to, does the presence or absence of a dick? Because really, it's always about that. Because penises are treated as fucking magic.
They are
And,
fucking magic.
Like
They
fine,
are.
but like they're not any better or not than any other particular arrangement
I
of genitals.
disagree.
But it's like this magical thing, right? And so presence or absence, like, is that really the thing
Yes.
that would make you go, oh no, I can't do this?
Yes.
And similarly, if you were dating somebody and they happened to lose use of their genitals from disability, from being in an accident, from whatever else, right? Like, would that suddenly break your ability to feel connected to them? For some people, it might.
Does.
And for a lot of people, it probably wouldn't, right? And so it's less like, what does attraction really mean? And is it more about the body piece for you, or is it actually about the larger identity where we've been taught to think of the body as a shortcut for that, right? So for example, does your attraction to men include being attracted to trans men, right? It doesn't mean that if you're only attracted to women, you have to suddenly add attraction to men to that in order to like not have dating preferences, right? Similarly, if you're attracted to women, are you including trans women in that attraction for you, right? And then also, what do you assume about trans and non-binary bodies, right? Oftentimes we see somebody in public and we read them as some sort of gendered body. I skipped. Okay.
You're fine. I'm just marking.
We already talked about that.
Okay.
That's why. Thank you. You tried to help, and then I just made it a big thing, and it's really awkward. So thank you. It's doing a live show is a thing because like I usually edit out all of the awkward moments where I don't understand what Jay is doing. But now they're all here for the world to see. Non-binary people blow up this idea of binary attraction, right? So when we're out in the world, usually we're gendering bodies and we're seeing them and we're sorting them into usually male and female, or male, female, and
Let me look again.
I think this is a good reminder from Mark.
And so,
like your
good
gender.
reminder.
And so what it comes down to is you don't really know somebody's identity until you talk to them, right? When you see them, when you're looking at somebody and that initial attraction happens for you. If it does, I want to say that like for some asexual people, for some people who are on the arrow spectrum, like it might not happen for you in that way, and that's okay too. But when you see that person and you feel attraction to them, you don't actually know their identity, and you might just be reading them as within your attraction sphere when they may not be within that, or they may be, and it might actually challenge your own ideas of what your attraction really is, right? So that attraction to somebody doesn't magically disappear just because you learn that the person is non-binary or trans, right? But that discovery might challenge your own conception of your sexuality and gender. I know for me, for example, when I met the first non-binary person that I met, like I was very in a sort of straight mindset for myself at the time before I transitioned, and really thinking I was only attracted to women. And then I met a non-binary person. I was like, that's really cool.
And
right?
did
Like
that
idea
non-binary
like,
person have
I
a
could be
penis or a
challenged in my
vagina?
own conception of who I am by somebody who's outside of that idea.
Because
Right?
they still
a
had
lot of our
genitals, I'm
attraction is really
assuming.
based on this binary structure of men and women finding each other, or of men and women as sort of a pushback against that straight culture, right?
Which is not to say that queer folks are not legit. It's just the way that society is structured is that we don't exist.
Yeah. That's what I meant to say.
We
Well,
are
you
anomalies.
obviously exist. You're speaking on a college
so
campus.
it's
I'm happy
not-
to be an anomaly.
So
Can we go back
yeah.
for just a
Yeah.
second?
Go back.
Because I want to go back to like for a second about like if attraction is to men, does that include trans men? Because I really want to just track this down for a second because there's often like and I know that there's a really lovely meme going around to this effect, which I think you've posted at least twice. I tend to not post a lot of memes. I mostly post really, really depressing things about white supremacy.
It's important
It is
to know.
It's what I do. So you know, if we're like, well, I'm not interested in bodies that don't have this sort of genitals. Well, there's plenty of folks who are trans who have the set of genitals that you're looking for. Well, but I don't want them if they're like this. Well, there's people like every kind of exception that you can come to is basically like, but we're not a monolith, so that there are folks that will fit into that. There, and as you get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, it just becomes really clear that you don't have anywhere to go,
Okay,
and that this is just about something else. So
listen. I don't know why we can't just live in a world where people are attracted to what they want to be attracted to. You don't want to have sex with someone who's not attracted to you. You don't want to have sex with someone who has to talk themselves into being attracted to you. That defeats the entire goddamn point. Why do you, it is so, I'm sorry, rapey to have entire podcasts where you're trying to convince people who are not attracted to you to be attracted to you. No matter who you are, no matter how weird you look, no matter how zimzer you are, it doesn't matter. There will be people in the world who will be attracted to you. Like everyone has people, it's really true. Everyone can find someone to have sex with. However, if you are constantly trying to talk people into wanting to have sex with you that are not attracted to you in the first place, this is like the key to a horrible, unfulfilling sex life. The whole point of sex is that you want to be able to let go. That is what it is. Orgasm is called the little death by the French because it's letting go. You can't have an orgasm if you can't let go. That is just the way it works. And so why are you trying to have sex with people where you are trying to control every fucking aspect of the equation? It is directly antithetical to having a satisfying sexual experience with someone. Be attracted to who you're attracted to. Let people do what they want. Let people be attracted to what they want. Like, I mean, you guys are going to like swinger conventions and shit like that. Like, you're obviously finding people to have sex with. You know this is possible. You don't need to talk people into it. This is way too much intellectualization about something that is actually very, very simple and instinctual.
what else is the there?
Yeah.
Right?
It's usually trans people are yucky and I feel uncomfortable
Yeah.
about them.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It's just like, is this really just about like this internalized bias, right? About like, and it's, again, you may not consciously believe this at all. There's implicit shit that we don't even realize is there. That's like trans people are less real, or trans people are icky or weird or gross or strange or unnatural or whatever it is that is so embedded that you don't even realize that it's there. It just comes up with, oh, I've just never met a trans person I'm attracted to, or I don't date trans people.
Yeah. So the kind of takeaway from this section is it's not transphobic to not be attracted to one specific trans person, right? If there's a trans person in your life and you don't feel attraction to them, that's okay. But it is transphobic to say, I don't date trans people. I'm not attracted to trans people. I don't find trans people interesting, right? Because what you're doing is you're taking an entire group of people and you're then making an assumption based on one piece that you have decided is not okay for you, and then painting everybody with that same brush, right? Mm-hmm. And what usually ends up happening when you have those attitudes is then you do meet a person who's in that category, and it forces you to challenge your idea of, oh, maybe I actually am feeling attraction to this person, and maybe my ideas about what was possible are really different, right? Similarly, you might be somebody who thought of yourself as straight your entire life, and then you meet somebody who's a man if you're a man, or a woman if you're a woman, who's non-binary, and forces you to really challenge your idea of like, oh, I really thought this identity was really solid for me, but actually it turns out maybe I just hadn't met the right person of this group yet, or whatever else, right? And so we have this idea that like some fallout of the sort of like born this way, like arguments around gay marriage and gay rights and not being killed by police and all this other like shit that we've had to fight for as a community that Pete Buttigieg is fine throwing away. We
Just gonna slide that in there. Just gonna,
I got our Pete
Yeah,
episode will
just
be
gonna
next
go,
week
it will
actually,
be.
but
The queers hate Pete Buttigieg. Isn't that interesting?
but you know,
LGBTQ.
so
Um,
but like we've had to fight for these things, and part of that is because we as a community have been
What a
marginalized in
great
the past,
shirt.
right? But
that is an excellent shirt, Barb. You should absolutely have put on that shirt.
it's not a problem to not have an attraction to one specific person, but when you're writing off an entire group of people based on that, then it is really based on these people are uncomfortable for me, or I find them gross, or I find them icky. And that's really much more problematic.
Yeah. And all this shit is built on white supremacy and colonialism. Like every one of these fucking systems of oppression has been built on this. The ways that we define gender is built on this. Also want to call up another amazing book that I'm currently in the middle of, called Black on Both Sides. That's about race and trans identity, and how transness has been built into and on top of white supremacy as a thing, because of the ways in which we conceptualize gender as inherently related to race, and that white femininity and white masculinity are identified in these very, very separate ways because of these fucking systems. So, right, we can definitely then see how all of this other stuff is built, right? So I have this lovely mug, which for a long time was my profile.
I just want to say that I really feel like if my life had gone in a different direction, I really feel like I would have made an excellent queer SJW. I can rant with the best of them. I could rant bullshit for days and days and days about homo patriarchy and cis normativity and like all this stuff. I feel like I really could have been more queer than the actual queers are. And it maybe on another lifetime, another journey, that would have been how I spent my time. But no, I'm here with you guys, and that's just gonna have to be good enough for today. Emily, thank you for the super chat. By this logic, even though she is attracted to smart people, she hasn't met the right stupid person yet. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Because they're always like, you can't have preferences. You can be attracted to anyone, but don't be attracted like this. Don't be attracted like this. And maybe if you think you're attracted like this, you're really attracted like that. It's like, yo, leave people alone and let them be.
File picture on FetLife, because FetLife is trash. And people don't get to always just see naked pictures of me. That was more fats, more femmes. And so this is one of those things that has also been.
Do you guys remember how I've told you repeatedly that people in the fat studies community are always amateur porn stars? Always. Every single fat activist I have ever encountered in existence is always an amateur porn star. The Zimzers just basically said there are naked pictures of them on the internet. Let's rewind. They're talking about being on FetLife and how you don't get to have naked pictures of them on FetLife, which means there are probably naked pictures of them somewhere. They're always amateur porn stars. Every single I'm just gonna do not Google these people's names. Like, I promise you're gonna end up on like some Pornhub rabbit hole like you've never been on before in your life.
Because FetLife is trash. And people don't get to always just see naked pictures of me. That was more fats, more femmes. And so this is one of those things that has also been really, really common to see on dating apps. Grindr is particularly bad about it. I don't know why I keep torturing myself with Grindr, except to bring you all Grindr Peace Theater, because it's hilarious what people think is okay. But we continue to see kind of no fats, no femmes. So this like scapegoating and throwing away of femininity, particularly femininity in men, and also of fat bodies. And additionally, right, there's also all of these ideas like, oh, I'm just not attracted to Black people. I'm just not attracted to Asian people, as though all Black people and all Asian people are all from the same place and all have exactly the same background and is just one giant monolith of an entire huge group of people. Or I'm just not interested in indigenous people, although that's not usually the language that people who are saying that use.
Unfortunately,
I'm
no.
not going to use it. Or other things like, oh, well, I could never date anybody who uses a mobility device. Like, what the fuck? Where the fuck is that coming from? So particularly if you
Maybe
hold a
you
privileged
just don't
identity,
want
although
to.
those of us with down identities swallow this shit whole too, because we're being raised into this. But if you have this a privileged identity, an up identity, and you're explicitly or again implicitly seeing groups of people as
No,
unattractive,
this is something
unworthy,
else.
unvaluable, undateable, even if you'd still fuck us in secret,
No one's
there are
fucking
a
you in
whole lot of
secret.
folks that are like,
Did a lot of that,
oh, no
unfortunately.
fat, no, really want to fuck fat women in secret.
Mm-hmm.
You are perpetuating white supremacist, cis, heteropatriarchal, ableist, classist, ageist bullshit ideas of beauty and what that means and who we really should value. And that's crap.
It's crap.
Because then it also shows up as like trans people saying, oh, I don't date other trans people. I'm just not attracted.
Mark, they're calling you out.
Other trans people. And Black women and Asian men, because again of the ways that we structure
Mark, you're
gender
transphobic.
and
Congratulations.
racial stereotypes around this at these particular intersections that continue to just get pushed further and further and further out. And like there's some data from OkCupid for across 5 years, but then there's been more and more and more academic research around this, right? That like Black women.
Mark, who is a trans man, is now transphobic because Mark doesn't like dating trans people. Mark, why are you a self-hating trans?
And Asian men consistently receive the least interest and the lowest ratings by everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone. Because of this. And again, people are not a monolith. So when we start constructing this, what we really mean is my idea of beauty is not you. You are other than that. So now I am going to continue to project all this shit, but I'm not going to say that and just be like, oh no, I'm just really interested in blondes.
Yeah.
Some Black people are blonde.
Well,
sometimes too, what this comes from is fear, right? So it comes from or it shows up as like sort of, well, trans people are great, but like I wouldn't want to offend somebody. I wouldn't want to hurt somebody. I wouldn't want to like do something that's going to be hurtful to them.
Don't be a shitty human.
And so a lot of times I understand where that comes from, but usually what it is it's a scapegoat for not wanting to learn and not wanting to improve and also not wanting to be accountable to the fact that we're all going to fuck up on this stuff, right? We're all going to have these attitudes that are bigoted or these things that come from places that we're not knowing about or come from these sort of societal structures, right? And so really what it comes down to is, can you be vulnerable enough to say, I haven't dated a trans person before. I'm really attracted to you. I really like this connection that we have. And I want to let you know that I want to do the best I can with this. I'm going to do what I can personally to read, to learn, to do whatever. But I also want you to call me in on things when you feel like I've missed something or you feel like I'm centering cisness or I'm hurting you by saying things that are cis-sexist or whatever, right? When I started dating my nesting partner, Nikki, we really did have to work through a lot of this stuff as a trans.
My nesting partner. Nesting partner. Are you a bird? Wow.
Trans person and she's a cis person. To the point where like I, before her, had dated so many like bad cis relationships that I was just like, I'm done. I'm okay. I'm just only gonna date trans people from now on. It's fine.
So many toxic.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Mark is nesting is a poly thing. That makes sense. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Well,
and when we first got together, oh my god.
And for a lot of people, I was their first trans partner. And I'm challenged by that sometimes. And how much emotional labor and how much emotional labor really has to go into helping people see what they don't see, right? Helping people understand what they haven't understood yet, right? And so but similarly, I made a connection with somebody who happens to be a cisgender person, and it was a really great connection. And so what we did was work through that and understand the power dynamic of the fact that like she's going to bring stuff into the relationship that she's not even aware of, that she's not understanding, right? And there were times where she said things that were hurtful that that we, you know, had to work through and say, here's I know what you meant with this, and here was the actual impact that you had, and helping understand like why those things were hurtful, and then also her doing her own work, and also talking to Jay, because Jay offered to be a helpful person when I like didn't have the emotional capacity to really do it right.
Metamor power.
Yay, metamors. But like this stuff is messy sometimes. Like if you're dating somebody who's really different than you.
I mean, okay, like illustration station, like like straight men, like some straight men like have a metric fuck ton of sex, right? Some straight women have a metric fuck ton of sex. Like I think that STDs are probably not any more common in queer circles than they are in any other circle, if I'm honest about it.
Then things are going to come up. And especially if you're somebody who holds more privileged identities, you're going to hurt that person in ways that you're not intending, right? And so again, this isn't about being perfect. This isn't about knowing everything all the time. And it's also not about like forcing yourself to seek out things just to prove that you can, or to treat it like a bingo card or something, right?
I do sometimes feel like people have like a bingo card of like, I'm going to date one Black person, and now I have dated a Latinx person, and now I'm going to date a trans, and then I am going to find a queer, and then I am going to find a disabled, and then I am going, and
They
now
distinguish
I have
between-
bingo! I don't know what you win when you win woke bingo other than my hatred.
They should be so lucky.
Probably just my indifference, which I feel like maybe hurts more.
Yeah.
My disappointment and indifference is
Right.
what you win. And I also want to name that like folks from marginalized communities, folks with those down identities, right? Like we, depending on how those show up, and obviously all of us have some assortment of up and down identities. We may not be open to connection with privileged folks with the up identities for very different reasons. Like, I'm just tired. I'm just tired. And like, I'm willing to fuck cis people if they meet a bare minimum of not grossness. But I'm just not interested in investing a ton of energy into dating cis people because of how much it can take out, and how much education has to go into it, and how much coddling sometimes feels in the like. And if they're looking for comfort from me, like, no, fuck you, it's not going to happen. Go find your shit somewhere else. And that's different, right? That is a different thing. That is why we also find like spaces for particular community to connect. This is why we try to build out some of those things. And so there's really a difference between kind of like saying, yeah, I'm attracted to you, and you're too much work for me to be able to do this for whatever reason. I don't have the like, yeah, I'm not going to hold your hand through your identity crisis. So like figure that shit out, and then maybe we can figure something out other than banging.
Hang on, I got a super chat coming in from James Jones. Thank you, James Jones. They have a way to put down anyone. If you don't date a trans person, you're a bigot. If you do, you're just filling out a bingo card. Well, this is exactly the thing. It's like they're never happy. They're never satisfied. It's always going to be something. There's always going to be some problem. I agree, James Jones. It's like nothing is good enough. Can't date a trans person, can't not date a trans person, whatever. Come on, chat. Get off the screen. There it is.
Probably once. Although again, every cis, heavy air quotes on that person that I have fucked up to this point has since come out as trans and non-binary. So cracking eggs or being contagious, it's one of the two. Maybe both. But I know that we wanted to talk a little bit about kind of these safety boundaries and how those kind of show up for us. I started to, but do you want to?
Yeah, I just thought it might be helpful to give some examples, because sometimes hearing this, the reaction can be like, well, there was a time as a white person that a person of color didn't want to date me or whatever, right? And like, how does that fit into this too, right? And so that's different when we're talking about marginalized identities who've been harmed by power systems may have to draw a boundary for their own safety or for their own ability to navigate the world in a way that feels safe for them. To say like, you know what, I really just can't do this right now. For me, I'm a survivor of sexual assault from a man in my life. It was somebody I was really close to. It was somebody that I trusted. And it was a really deep violation of that trust in a way that's made it really hard for me to connect with men beyond that, right? And so the importance of that is to say, like, I'm realizing that it's my responsibility to do the work around why this trauma is hard for me, around why I need to draw this boundary right now, or why I haven't found a man who's been a good fit for me recently. And also realize that like there were times where I was harming myself by forcing myself into sexual relationships with men, because I felt like I had to prove that I could do it, or I felt like I had to prove that I could force myself through it or whatever else, right? And so there are times where people might have to draw boundaries around safety stuff. Like Jay was talking about genitals too, right? Like you might have had something happen with a certain type of genitals that was really triggering for you. And when that comes up for you, it might bring that back up, right? And so this isn't an absolute, right? We're not here to like give you rules about what you have to do or don't have to do.
Well, it
around
kind of
dating,
sounds like
but
you
more just to
are.
ask questions about if there's something coming up for you where you don't feel like you can connect with people who are within your attraction sphere. I can tell when a man is hot. I can tell when I'm attracted to a man, but I just don't want to go further than that right now. And so that's different than saying all men are disgusting or all men would never be with me or I can never do that or whatever, right? Because as a pansexual person, as a queer person, like they're in my possible sphere of attraction. I feel myself physically attracted to them at times, but emotionally and mentally, it's much harder for me to find a safe way to do that, right? And so the onus isn't on those men to then prove all the time that they're good or whatever, right? The onus is on me to negotiate my trauma, to figure out where it's coming from, and to be just open to the fact that there might be a man in my life who might be a good fit for me later on, right? And not force that to happen because I feel like I have to prove that I can do that necessarily.
Yeah, and for me, this shows up in a couple of ways, particularly like, T for T forever is, I should just get that tattooed in my body probably.
You should get
But
T for T.
T for T
cute.
forever. Crash, my nesting partner, now has a T for T stick and poke tattoo, and to not act on those attractions because I'm tired, because I made some choices to be embodied in the ways that I present myself to the world so that I'm not only more comfortable in my body, although the world is scary and awful sometimes, but also to be a really visible trans person because I want to be that person that frankly I needed to see when I was younger and would have figured this shit out and maybe felt better about my life. But to be able to see like, a disabled, queer, trans, fat person. And so I want to be able to do that. And because of that, I'm educating cis people constantly. And so then I don't
You're
want to
so
do it
put
in the
upon.
bedroom or in the time when I can like turn off from professional mode. I don't want to have to be like, and now we're fighting about this shit around your comfort again. Cool, this is fun. This is not what I need right now. Yeah. My standards for hooking up are significantly lower than my standards for ongoing interaction with people because of that. And then this also, though, shows up for me around fat bodies. I love fat bodies. I am so very attracted to fat people generally. And there is so much internalized shit around that for me that it shows up in really toxic ways that can hurt my partners when my self-hatred about all the shit that I've internalized around my fat body comes up. And they're like, well, that's how my body looks. Like, what are you then saying about me? Mm-hmm. When I'm not meaning to say anything about them, but just simply mentioning it and knowing that and holding that absolutely shows up like that and lands in those ways. And that's really fucked up. And this is constant unlearning and constant challenging.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is kind of how it shows up for me.
I had to do some relearning around fatness too. Like I think I had internalized a lot of really negative message about fat phobia from my family, from just like the culture that I was in. I'm in a state where there's a lot of like thin white people. And my school was very much that as well. And so I had to really unlearn these ideas of like that fatness is inherently bad or gross or negative or dangerous or something to avoid or whatever. And also that it wasn't attractive, right? It actually turned out that once I started dating fat people who I loved and who I cherished, and I could find the joy about a soft belly, or the joy about like holding someone who has a lot of body to them, or about feeling somebody close to me and feeling all of my skin on their skin as a fat person with a fat person, right? A lot of my dating before was like being much bigger than my partners because I didn't feel comfortable dating people that were my size, right? And so these are things that we're all working on, right? These are things that come up for all of us. And even if you're somebody who's a sex educator, even if you're somebody who's been talking about this stuff for a while, it's going to come up for you, right? So it's not about shame or about being perfect all the time, but it's about questioning where do these things come from, and also how can we work on transforming them.
Yeah, let's dig that shit out.
Yeah. So we would like to move on to the question and answer.
Yes, let's do Q&A.
If you have a question about what we've been talking about, you're welcome to ask that. But also, we just want any questions about sex, about gender, about sex toys, about safety,
I don't want to
about
ask
consent,
questions about
The
sex
history of
toys.
queer criminalization in
you know,
America.
yeah, anything.
That was a
I think
two-part
it's a bad
episode.
idea.
Anything that you're interested in, you should have a slip of paper, right? Papers. Did the papers get passed out?
Okay, there's a box moving around.
Okay.
I'm also gonna go grab this mic.
Yes.
And if folks want to come
And
up,
we will get the
or
mic as well.
or would somebody be willing to walk the mic around? Is my other question. Awesome,
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. You stand up for a sec. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm just getting the mic,
Oh,
but I needed to push my pelvis doesn't work.
and I will say too, if you're watching live on YouTube and you have a question, you can put it in the chat, and we will also get to that as well. Somebody said they were wondering why there hasn't been an episode posted in February, because I've been really depressed, and because disability stuff is hard, and because I had to see the doctor a lot, and the doctor brings up a lot of stuff. So we try to make things weekly. We now have this episode plus the recent episode that we recorded last week in the hopper. So we're going to get back to posting weekly episodes. That's always our goal. So anytime that we don't post a weekly episode, I'm going to try and communicate about that better on our Facebook page and on our Twitter. But I also just want to share that there are going to be times where we can't, and unfortunately that's just the reality of being two poor disabled queers who are not paid professionally to run a podcast by NPR or something,
I don't want to work for NPR.
I also co-host the show, but then do the editing and
All right,
the
Pinch, send it to me.
so
I'll look forward to it.
else to do that, unfortunately.
Somebody would like to help us with our transcript archive. We would love it.
No, I don't want somebody else to do it until I can pay them. So that's really my concern for that. We've had people say they want to do it on a volunteer basis, but that feels unethical to me. So, do we have a question in the audience or questions in the question box?
You have to hold the button down a lot. It comes on.
Why does this person walk like an old lady?
There we go.
Did you see that? They walk like an old lady.
The Kleenex box.
Wow.
Okay, so if somebody has a question they want to ask now, Jay, do you want to start sorting through those?
I'm opening them up and yes.
Okay, cool.
Oh, this is going to be crazy.
Okay.
Gird your loins.
I'm just digging out the blinks.
So hi. This is mostly related to some of the stuff around sapiosexuality that came up earlier, and specifically around intelligence being as shitty as it is. I am disabled in more than a couple ways, some of it visible, and I have a lot of trouble explaining various things, but especially how much intelligence stuff hurts me to partners, and I don't always know how to get through that, because some of it is just I don't always have the energy to talk that out with someone, and then also linking them a blog post that I've already written about this or that someone else has written is comes across as passive aggressive. Sometimes it feels like
yes.
it does, and I'm I don't know what to do.
Okay, guys, pro tip is someone who's been married for almost 12 years now. If you have things you want to say to your partner, don't send them a blog post that you wrote. That's a bad idea.
I think that's a great question. As a prolific link sender to people, I want to validate that it's okay to not have the energy to do that education. And I think maybe framing it a little more, thinking about how you would want to frame bringing it up to somebody might help sort of get rid of those feelings of I'm being passive aggressive, right? Because a lot of passive aggression is about saying one thing and meaning another, right? It's about saying you look great when actually it's you're supposed to understand that outfit looks bad, right? Just say the outfit looks bad if you think it does, right? Or whatever, right? And so giving a little more context about hey, I'm really feeling attracted to you. I really like our connection. I really want you to understand why what you said before was hurtful to me or whatever, but I don't have the energy, or I've already written extensively about it. And I would love for you to read this, because in some ways that can be a check for you also to be is this person willing to invest the time and energy to really love you and to cherish you as you are, and to really understand why things might be hurtful, Or are they kind of seeing you as disposable and they're like, too much work, right?
Well, why can't you just have a conversation with them? If someone's your partner, you should just be able to like have a conversation with them.
It might be a really telling reaction for you, even though it can be difficult to navigate sometimes.
Yeah, and also like the work is should never be put on the person who's being targeted, right? So like in some ways I have this like, well, what are they gonna do if I'm mean to them? They're gonna go, man, I'm gonna go, okay, block, bye. Or they're gonna be like, oh, you're so awful, I never want to be in community with you. Okay, I'm not missing out on
And
anything,
community
right?
is
So
a
just this kind
socialist
of like,
term.
and I realize that like in being able to like find community and connect with people, like that can get hard. And if it's a relationship that you care about and want to invest in, like that's one thing, right? Like, you know, you're a friend, or like I'm attracted to you, or I want this relationship to continue, and holy shit, you keep doing this stuff, like you gotta meet me at least halfway, or we can't do this. But if it's like rando on the internet, like fuck you if you're not gonna read this shit, and it's gonna hurt your feelings, like, but it's not on me to make you feel better, or again to hold your hand through your fragility.
Yeah, it's like how much does the relationship mean to you, and where is it coming from?
Yeah.
You know, and yeah.
And like if they actually care about the relationship as much as they think they should, then they should be able to do some work.
Yeah.
Also, like, please stop using people as Google is
Yeah.
really the other thing. But I just like, we all need to stop using each other as Google. We can Google and then we can talk about things.
Yeah. Well, some of too, like as a disabled person myself as well, like some of like what I need from partners is to understand that I have different ways of communicating, or is to understand that like it might be better for this person for us to have a face-to-face conversation, but I will not be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
And so some of it is about setting your own boundaries around like what you really need. And like I mentioned before, like it might be telling for you if you set a boundary with somebody and they're like, that's too much work, then that tells a lot about like if that person's willing to invest in you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that answered what you were getting at, or do you have a follow-up question?
No, that answers it. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much. Do you want to read it, or do you want me to?
You can go for it.
Okay. I'm gonna read this one, and folks can think about what they want to ask as well if they want to ask on mic. So it says, without knowing how each of you identify racially and socioeconomically, the way each of you speaks signifies some level of privilege. I've never heard of sapiosexual, and it seems pretentious. How do you talk about these topics without sounding like a rich white authority?
Called out in the Q&A. Props to whatever student wrote that. That was great.
So we both have white racial privilege. That is part of how we show up in the world. It's part of how we do this work. One of the goals that we bring to wanting to do this show is as white people speaking to white people about these topics in a way that can hopefully help push them towards further justice work, and also to guide them towards articles or books or other things written by people who are not white to help round out that that understanding for them. But yeah, Jay and I in some ways have access to the work that we do and the language that we use because we both have been in formal systems of education. Jay works at a college. I worked at a college before the work that I do now. I worked at a very white nonprofit before that. And yeah, sapiosexual might be something that's just like not in your communities or not something that people are using. And it is a pretentious word.
I mean, honestly, like that whole first section, I would have been totally fine with. Sapiosexual is pretentious as fuck, and we can just give it up and move on. And also, like, I want to check where that comes from in me, and like throwing things immediately away or kind of having this black and white thinking, which is definitely something that whiteness was trained into me around, that there is correct and there is good and there's bad, there is right and there is wrong, there's nothing in the middle, you have to pick things. And no matter how many times my not great mother would say, oh, but there's shades of gray, she never lived that way, and so I was never taught to live that way. And so I have this impetus to just be like, yeah, it's bullshit. And like sometimes that is a good thing because yeah, a lot of things are just bullshit. And in the ways in which people kind of come to figuring out who they are, this might be a path for that. And I don't want to just say, well, you're somehow less than. And it is pretentious as fuck.
Yeah. I also want to speak to like the white authority thing. Like, there might be things that we say or do that are coming across that way because it's an unconscious bias within us, or it's the way that we've been socialized to speak or to explain things. But I also sort of wonder, like, what does it mean to be a white authority? Like, what does it mean to embody that in spaces? And I hope that what we bring is being able to talk to complicated issues, being able to use the experience that we have to educate and bring experience in a way that is free, that is accessible, and that is a larger platform for other folks to then become inspired to do their own work or to find their own community resources as well. But the reality of the positionality of Jay and I is that is sometimes what's going to come off for us, and that's our own work to do as well. And also,
Thank you,
we're very
Bot.
open to hearing call outs and call ins, either to the email or here if you want to catch us afterwards and let us know if there was a way that we've impacted you or harmed you with the language that we're using, because we do want to work on being better around that and learning ourselves and understanding that this is always a process.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I fuck up constantly, and try to do better tomorrow.
Yeah. Are there other cues in the Q&A?
There was a lot of empty little sheets in here.
Okay.
So that was the only one that I saw. I'm going to double check.
Okay.
But I think that might have been the only question.
Audience question? Somebody else have something they want to ask?
Or anything on YouTube?
Nope, nothing on YouTube right now.
The audience is like
do we
so
have one
not
over
into
here,
this. I
Maria?
wonder if like a queer studies professor made them go or something.
It's more for accessibility around the room for people to be able to hear. And also I think it'll help it show up on the recording a little better. Yeah. Nothing else? Okay.
That's great. Hello.
I kind of just have a question about like the polyamory thing.
Polyamory.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know anything about that.
Yeah. So
Just about
I use
polyamory.
nesting partner in the way that like people might colloquially use like wife, or like a person who's like an important live-in partner who is there for the majority of my life. I don't tend to use that language as much, and use nesting partner instead, because it helps communicate that I have other people in my life who are also important to me, but in just really different ways, right? So because I live with my partner Nikki at home, we see each other 95% of the time. She's watching this and is very sad that I'm not at home right now, because she would want me to kiss her. But
that tracks
very much. But the relationship I have with Jay is going to look really different than the relationship I have with Nikki. But because of how I experience my polyamory, it doesn't mean either of those relationships is more or less valuable to me or is more or less important. But nesting partner allows me to talk about the amount of time that I'm spending with that partner, and also the dynamic that we have of living together, without putting the sort of like hierarchy on it that sometimes that language can imply. Not that polyamorous people can't say wife or husband or can't say other things as well, but there's a little more cultural baggage to unpack there around the idea that, like wife and mistress have really different power ideas of like how important those relationships are, right? Although I do love being the consensual mistress. Yeah. I do love being the consensual mistress. I'm like, oh yeah, come over. Everyone knows what's going on. And then we'll have sex, and then I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, and just the like reality of kind of like when you are engaged in multiple relationships, there's not really good words for that, right? And so there's been some really interesting things kind of within, for between folks who are practicing non-monogamy or ethical non-monogamy or whatever you want to call it, or polyamory, and talking about like, well, nesting partner, we nest, we've built a nest together, we live together. And maybe there's, a lot of people who live in that. Maybe there's a polycule of nesting partners that live together. I guess a beaver dam would also work.
A beaver dam? Are you
shit?
Wow.
There's folks that talk about anchor partners, so kind of
a beaver
longer
dam.
term, usually important relationships that are kind of anchoring in your life. I've also heard things where people just like put colors or like random letters or words or something to a partner, so that there is not a hierarchy, which is not to say that some folks do not practice hierarchical polyamory
Yeah,
and
I'm about
monogamy,
done,
because
but it's
folks
almost
definitely will
over.
have
It's okay. We're almost
primary,
there.
secondary, tertiary. I don't know what comes after tertiary.
Quadriversionary.
Quad something. I'm not going to be able to pronounce this. We're not going to try. Right, and that is a structure that works for some people. It does not work for me. Sarah, you know, I consider an anchor partner.
Oh, so
Also
they're in a
podcasting
poly
partner,
relationship.
like a thing we do. Is it growing? I don't know.
It's growing. Don't worry. It's growing.
It's terrifying. Anyway.
Jay doesn't look at the stats I do
not
because
look
it
at
makes
the
Jay
stats.
uncomfortable.
It makes me nervous.
Jay's like, 4 people are listening to this. It's great.
Fine. It's great. I can see kind of people in the audience. Yeah. So, you know,
Sarah, here's the thing. I can guarantee you, I will mess around and go to a conference. Hang on, let me find Sarah's super chat, or it wasn't a super chat, but Sarah sent it a chat. She said, Carlin, I suggest you try attending PennSIC if you want to see a lot of polyamory. It's wild. It's a big camping event with lots of LARPing that has okay, so here's the thing, Sarah. I am fully willing to like venture into like a conference type setting. What I'm not willing to do is go camping with a bunch of polyamorous swingers in the middle of the woods. I think that crosses a line for me. I feel like that is just like in a hotel conference center, I can understand that. In a campground, I just feel like that's like I feel like that's rife for error, and I don't want to. Oh, hang on, I got a super chat. Murphy's Pool, 69. Get blasted directly in the nostrils with a hot unfiltered, and you'll never do it again. Well, you know, Murphy's Pool. Let's dare to dream. Dare to dream.
As folks who are practicing, you know, I call myself a relation anarchist, and a non-hierarchical polyamorous person. I have lots of important relationships in my life, and they're not necessarily sexual or not. They're not necessarily folks that I live with or not. They're not necessarily folks that I have, you know, that I even am able to see, touch,
Noted, Tinge.
or
Thank you.
talk to every day. That doesn't mean that they are less important than other folks in my life. It means that we have different relationships. And so being able to kind of talk about that in ways that doesn't immediately imply a hierarchy in standard English is useful. So yeah, that's kind of where that is coming from. Is that answering your question, making sense? Cool.
Cool. Thank you. Other questions from the audience?
You can also send the box back around.
Yeah. They can be about anything.
Okay, cool. Send the box back around.
No, I can't do this anymore. And I think it's over. It's pretty much over anyway. They only have like 3 more minutes left. I don't want to do another round of box. I can't handle it anymore. I can't handle it. I'm done. That's 2 hours of queer sex ed that I can't get back. All right, guys. Thank you for celebrating the number 69 episode of The Cult. Here's to many more, but we will never get 69 back again. And I think we did it well. I think this was about as good as that was going to get. So please do whatever else you'd like to do to the like button on the way out the door. And as a reminder, in just 1 hour's time, I will be presenting this here online webinar called Playing Politics, the Psychology of the Human Workplace. I'm going to go put my finishing touches on it right now. This is a series that I'm doing as part of my Unwoke Your Work series. And basically what I'm doing is I'm recording my organizational psychology presentations to put them online, to have them on demand for people to access whenever they would like to. So they can have like non-woke workplace development training. I have this whole catalog of trainings that I've had sitting around. I was like, why not put these on the internet and give people access to them? And Playing Politics is my most popular keynote presentation ever. I'm going to break down the psychology of office politics. It's fun. It was always a crowd pleaser. I've presented this keynote on some really big stages. I haven't done it in about a year. I'm really looking forward to doing it again. And I'm going to be doing it in about an hour's time. So if you are a supporter on my Substack, in my locals, you guys got a promo code for 50% off the price that you can find on either of those platforms. If you are supporting me at the $25 a month level or more, you get free access, and I emailed out that information. If you can't make it tonight at 8 p.m., that's cool, man. It's going to be recorded, so you can watch it as you would like. And if you sign up, you're also going to get access not only to this class at 8 p.m., but you're also going to get access to the Zoom webinar, the private Zoom webinar next week that I'm going to be holding to talk about this after the fact. Yes, Bot, you got a promo code because I think you're subscribed on the Substack. So where you would find your promo code on the Substack, if you're a supporter only, is going to be in the chat module. Okay, it's going to be in the chat module. You should have gotten an email about it earlier today. I'm not signed in under a supporter account, but if I were signed in under a supporter account, I could go to the chat module on Actively Unwoke Substack and find a promo code to sign up. You're welcome. All right, guys, I will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. for happy hour, where we watch a woke training from start to finish and we talk about it. For right now, guys, take care. Have a great rest of your day, and see you soon. Bye.